Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join PSAC members across the BC region. We're going to be talking about the federal government's plans to radically change sick leave in the federal public service. We're also here to give you an opportunity to ask questions about sick leave and about collective bargaining. My name is Patrick Bragg. I'm the Communications Officer for the PSAC BC region, and I'll be hosting tonight's telephone town hall meeting. It's great to be doing another telephone town hall with you all. Pardon me. For those of you who haven't participated in a telephone town hall before, this call is a mix between one big conference call and a radio talk show. It gives us the opportunity to talk to you and for you to ask your questions and give us your opinions. And just like a talk show, you'll be able to ask your questions live on air. So if you have a question, just press *3 on your phone to let us know you'd like to ask a question live on the call. So tonight we have several guests with us to give us an idea what the government has in mind for sick leave and to answer your questions. Before I introduce them, remember to press *3 on your phone if you want to ask a question on air. Tonight we have PSAC's National President Robin Benson on the call. We also have BC Regional Executive Vice President Bob Jackson, and we'll hear from them in just a moment. As well as Robin and Bob, we have one of PSAC's research officers, Bonnie Bates, on hand to help answer any questions you may have. So once again, just press *3 on your phone to let us know you'd like to ask a question live on this call. You'll also have an opportunity to leave your comments and additional questions in a message at the end of this call. For those of you that have just joined the call, I'm Patrick Bragg, PSAC's Communications Officer here in BC, and I'm your host for tonight's telephone town hall, where we're calling PSAC members across the BC region. Currently we have about 1,200 callers on the line, and we're still dialing people in. So let me introduce our first guest speaker, PSAC's National President, Robin Benson. Robin?
Hi, everyone, and thanks very much for taking time out to be on our call. As Patrick mentioned, the main topic of our call tonight is sick leave in the federal public service. However, I need to acknowledge that we do have members on the line who work for other employers, not just Treasury Board. But we know that the government is determined to take away as many of our negotiated benefits as possible. That's the example that they're setting for other employers. Just to look at the government's bill, C4, where it seriously watered down health and safety protection under the Canada Labour Code. Now, at least 1 million workers in the federal, private, and public sectors are more at risk than ever when they're at work. Government MPs, including the Minister of Labour, have supported private members' bills such as C-525, and that bill aims at making it harder for workers to organize. Government ministers regularly make comments putting down the role of unions and unionized workers. The government is continuously sending a message that it's okay for employers to go after workers and the salaries and benefits they've negotiated in their collective agreements. So it's important that we stand together when any employer tries to take away our hard-earned benefits. It's important that we stand together for decent working conditions and a good balance between our work and personal lives. Sick leave plays an important role in that work-life balance. That's why we'll be fighting for it. Patrick?
Thanks, Robin. Now let me introduce our next guest speaker on the call tonight, PSAC's Regional Executive VP for British Columbia, Mr. Bob Jackson. Bob, what can you tell us about the federal government's plans to replace sick leave in the public service?
Well, thanks, Patrick, and thanks for everyone for participating in this telephone town hall tonight. I'm going to spend some time talking with you about the Conservative government's plans for sick leave in the federal public service. This information is based upon government communiques, and the Treasury Board, while they have served us with notice to bargain at the end of February for most groups, negotiations have not begun, and we have not been presented with their actual plan for sick leave. But this is what we know so far. The government plans to get rid of the current sick leave system and introduce a short-term disability plan instead. They want to overhaul the long-term disability plan and integrate it with the short-term disability plan. They want to have this new system in place by July of 2016. This year, they would start the contract process to choose an outside provider for the new short-term disability plan and the overhauled long-term disability plan, and they would award that contract in 2015. Treasury Board wants all employees to be put on the new system of sick leave, both unionized and excluded employees. The government also wants to eventually separate employers in the new short-term and long-term disability plans. Treasury Board says its proposals are based on the belief that work is good for health. So that gives you a good idea of the employer's approach. Well, the Treasury Board may claim that this new strategy is about employee wellness. Here's what it's really about. It's about restricting access to leave. It's about restricting the number of sick leave and disability claims. And it's about contracting out the administration of sick leave and disability insurance. So most of all, it's about cost cutting. They want to cost cut by reducing the use of sick leave, by reducing the amount of paid leave and salary replacement, and by shortening periods of leave. They also want to cut costs through more aggressive case management. So in other words, they want members to get back to work faster, whether they're ready or not. We know this because Treasury Board recently issued a tender for a sick leave consultant. It says that the winning bidder should have a proven track record of success in reducing sick leave claims. Many of our members have already experienced just how badly these insurance companies treat our sick and injured members. On the one hand, we know that the government wants to have more control over the sick leave and the way they manage its high absenteeism. But ironically, by contracting this out, they'll be turning control over to an outside company to manage sick leave, disability, and return to work. We know the current sick leave system isn't perfect. Some employees do not have access to the sick leave that they need. But there are ways to address these concerns without reducing everyone's sick leave. Patrick, do you want to take a second and remind callers how they can ask questions online?
For sure, Bob. So all you need to do is press *3 on your phone to let us know how you'd like to ask a question on this call. You'll also have the opportunity after the call to leave your comments and additional questions in a voicemail message. Back over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Patrick. One of the many things this government has been saying is that federal government employees use way too much sick leave. But Tony Clement's numbers just don't add up. He's been saying that the average federal public sector worker takes 18 days of sick leave a year, but he's never come clean on where that number comes from. Our research indicates that members take between 0 and 8 days of sick leave a year. And we're not alone. In February, the Parliamentary Budget Officer issued a report on sick leave in the federal public sector. The report criticized the Treasury Board for including injury on duty leave and disability leave and mixed paid and unpaid leave in order to inflate their numbers. The report concluded that the average number of paid sick days was 11.5, not the 18 that Tony Clement is claiming. It also turns out the difference between the public and private sector is only about 1 day, not this huge gap that the government's talking about. An honest comparison of public and private sector sick leave points to problems in the private sector. Many private sector workers aren't paid when they're sick, so they aren't counted as being on sick leave. Stats Can reports that once gender, age, and unionization are taken into account, there's little difference between sick leave rates in the public and private sector. The Treasury Board also talks about its rising absenteeism. Well, I mean, if managers suspect that some employees are abusing their sick leave, they already have the tools to deal with these cases. They approve members' leave requests in the first place. They have the ability to ask for a doctor's note if illnesses are longer than a few days. The current sick leave system doesn't need to be changed to deal with suspected cases of absenteeism. This is clearly a management problem. Besides, workers who shouldn't be going to work when they're sick, it slows down recovery, it puts coworkers at risk of illness, and it undermines their ability to deliver vital services. And frontline workers who are sick on the job risk infecting the Canadians that they serve. Patrick, can we take a poll on this issue? Can you do that now?
Yeah, for sure, Bob. Those of you that have done a telephone town hall with us before will remember that we have the ability to ask questions of the give or take 2,000 members that are on this call right now. These questions will give us information and help us better understand your concerns. So, as Bob asked, let's do a quick poll right now about work and sick leave. So, even though our members have sick leave, we know that members still work when they're sick. We hear this from members. The question to you tonight is, have you ever worked when you're sick? Please listen to all 4 options before you press a button. Press 1 if you've had to come to work sick because you had run out of sick leave. Press 2 if you've come to work sick because of workload pressures. Press 3 if you've come to work sick for both of those reasons. And press 4 if you've never come to work sick. Once again, the 4 options are 1, if you've had to come to work because you ran out of sick leave. 2, if you've had to come to work because you felt the pressure of work. 3, if you've come to work sick for both of those reasons. And 4, if you've never come to work. So, Bob, I'll give people a minute or two to answer that question and go back to you for a sec.
Thanks, Patrick. And so we're going to talk in this next little section about how do we go about protecting our sick leave. Now, as we all know, our current system is negotiated, and this means that the employer, in this case the Treasury Board, can only ask for change through collective bargaining. Sick leave is one of the reasons that this upcoming round of collective bargaining is going to be so critically important for our members. And Patrick, I think we're close to the results. Could you give us the results, please?
Yep, for sure. Kristen is just passing them over to me. So thanks for everyone for taking part in that poll. And here we go. 2% of the people who are the members on this call who responded said they'd come to work sick because they were out of sick leave. 73% of the members responding to the poll said they went to work when they were sick because of workload pressures. 15% both reasons, and 9% of you have never come to work sick. Bob?
Thanks, Patrick. So we can see that this is a critically important issue, and it's also why it's going to be so important for every member to be involved in this round of collective bargaining. We all have a role to play in standing up for sick leave. First, we all need to stand strong behind our bargaining team. Over the next weeks and months, you'll be notified of membership meetings and other events related to collective bargaining, and it's important that we all participate and encourage our coworkers to do the same. Here in BC, we're planning a Provincial Day of Action for May 1st. On May 1st, PSAC members across BC will congregate outside their work sites and hold up signs that say, "Standing together for public services, standing together for fairness." Each worksite is encouraged to take a photo of their action, no matter how big or how small, so that we can show the government, the public, and fellow PSAC members that we are committed to defending our collective agreements and public services. Get in touch with your local executive or the PSAC regional office to find out how your worksite can get involved. Together, in every city, in every local, in every worksite in BC, we need to send a strong message to the government. We are strong and we are united. We need to speak to others about the issue, including our family members, our neighbors, our friends. The current government keeps talking about how we're overpaid and that we abuse sick leave and abuse other negotiated rights. And we know that this is just not true. We need to counter this in every possible way that we can. We're going to be holding a summit for leadership in the region coming up at the end of May. And we're going to talk about some strategies around how we can do this work better. So we're on this call here tonight to hear about your concerns on the issue and to get your ideas about how we can best defend our sick leave. So Patrick, back over to you.
Thanks a lot, Bob. So that was PSAC Regional Executive Vice President for BC, Bob Jackson. Remember, you can ask him a question, or you can ask Robin Benson, who's also on the call, a question live on air during our telephone town hall. All you have to do is press *3 on your phone. So for those of you just joining us, welcome to the telephone town hall aimed at giving you the information you need about the federal government's plans for sick leave. Right now we're being joined on the call by thousands of PSAC members from across the BC region. Just going to head on over back to Robin Benson. Robin, do you have anything to add to what Bob just said?
Well, thanks, Patrick. I do. I'd just like to add that our Treasury Board bargaining teams met all last week to finalize our demands. And we're taking a proactive approach, and we're putting forward demands to deal with issues in the workplace our members have raised. And, of course, we're fighting for sick leave. As many of you on the call may know, we've just signed a new agreement on the public service health care plan. And you should also know that discussions about the plan are done as a partners committee, which is very different from actual collective bargaining. However, in spite of it not being collective bargaining and only being part of a partners committee, we were able to make some fairly significant changes, even though the government was threatening legislation. And speaking of the government, we're now dealing with their latest budget implementation legislation, which is Bill C-31. Just a couple of weeks ago, they presented it on a Friday in the House, and certainly we're in the process of analyzing this bill because, once again, it's a 400-page omnibus bill, and it's called the Economic Action Plan 2014 Act number 1. So that leads us to believe that we'll be expecting another bill in the fall. And we do know about the bill is that this government has decided not to honor any of the agreements we've made around essential services. So according to this new bill, C-31, we'll have to negotiate them all over again, and we'll have to do it for each round of negotiations. This bill reverses all of the work that was done as a result of the Public Service Modernization Act that was adopted some 10 years ago. But, you know, of course, Patrick, that's typical of this government. They're all about going backwards. So I'll be very interested to hear from our members tonight. So, Patrick, do you want to take over again?
I will, Robin, and I'm going to quote you on that going backwards thing because I enjoyed that. So let's go to our first caller then. We have Janet from Mission on the line with a question about people on LTD. Janet, what's your question?
Oh, hi. My question is, I am a medically accommodated customs officer in British Columbia. My question is, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that, okay, if we lose the sick leave, that people that are medically accommodated that probably use more sick time than other people, whether it's sick with pay or without. My question is there any chance that employers can fire you for that now that we're losing our sick time?
Thanks for your question, Janet. I think, Robin, do you want to comment on that or answer it?
Well, certainly, Janet, thank you for the question. I think if I understood, you are on a duty to accommodate right now, and certainly the employer should not be firing anyone because of an illness. They have an obligation to accommodate you. You have an obligation, of course, to give them the information that they need in order to make it successful. You know, from our perspective, should you have any difficulties with your employer, then certainly I ask you to contact your local steward or your branch president to have a discussion with them, because the sick leave is in your collective agreement. Long-term disability is a right that our employees have when they have a disability and need to be looked after. Patrick?
Thanks, Robin, and thanks, Janet. Remember, callers, you can get in line to ask a question live on air by pressing *3 on your phone at any time. Now, let's take a poll. We're going to ask about usage of sick leave. This is an issue that Tony Clement has been out in the media quite a lot about, and I think that the results of this poll will be certainly interesting and edifying. So we're asking members on the call tonight, how much sick leave do you take in an average year? Please listen to all of the options I say before you press a button. Press 1 if you take between 0 and 3 days of sick leave per year. Press 2 if you take between 4 and 8 days of sick leave. Press 3 if you take between 9 and 14 days. Press 4 if you take 15 days or more. Once again, your 4 options are press 1 if you take between 0 and 3 days. Press 2 if you take between 4 and 8 days. Press 3 if you take between 9 and 14 days. And press 4 if you take 15 days or more. So take a minute and answer that question or take that poll while we go to the next caller, George from Delta, who has a question about publicity. George, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I should say I'm a retired public service employee, but not that long ago, and my wife is as well. but I do have a daughter in the public service, and she's quite concerned about this issue. I haven't seen a whole. Well, we've seen stuff in the news about this, but I'm hoping that the PSAC will get some kind of publicity campaign going right away, because I can see this going the very same way as severance pay, which was lost for every Treasury Board employee a couple of years ago. And it's going to be very important to get something in front of the public on this. But I think it's probably also important that there should be some negotiation. And I always say I never utilized sick leave unless I had to use it, which I always did if I was ill. And I had a couple hundred days when I left the public service. But I could have had a lot more. And at the end of coming to the end of your career, there's probably people that are looking at, well, why isn't there a payout for it? And I did bring this up at I was at a conference for negotiating for the CBSA a couple of years before I retired, and that was one of my things that I put in was why don't we have something where you can get a payout near the end of your service if you have a certain amount of sick leave, because there's no benefit to it at the end of your career, and people do utilize it. And I think that's what we got to realize, is that people are utilizing it at the end of their career, and whether that's right or wrong, that's what they do. So I hope.
Thanks, George. Let's pass that question over, or let's pass that over to Robin Benson for comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks, George, for your comments. Certainly, the sick leave that we accumulate every month is an insurance policy. If you're sick, you use your sick days. If you are not, they stay in the bank. We don't have a payout of sick leave, nor should we, because it is an insurance policy. And this is certainly, Mr. Clement is talking about this liability and why he needs to get rid of sick leave in the federal public service. And it's certainly not a liability unless it's used. And so from our perspective, it is in the collective agreement. It will stay in the collective agreement, and it will be used as it should be used, which is if you are sick, you use it. If you are not, you leave it there as an insurance policy. Patrick? Back to
Thank you, Robin. Thanks. So I just want to come back at you guys with the results to the poll that we just took. So 27% of the people that responded said they took between 0 and 3 sick days a year. 50% of the people responded said they took between 4 and 8 days per year. 18% of the people that responded said they took between 9 and 14 days per year. And 5% of the people that responded said they took 15 or more days. Robin, do you want to comment on that? Because I know you've talked to Tony Clement at great length about how much sick leave federal public sector workers take. Do you mind?
No, I don't mind at all, Patrick, and thank you very much. Mr. Clement and I have exchanged words, I would suggest to you, because he's been in the press talking about the 18 days that we use every year, even though I clearly articulated to him that we only earned 15 days, so how could we possibly use what we hadn't earned? There was a new report out from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, which Bob spoke to briefly, where private and public sector are very close, 11 days at most. And, quite frankly, I see by the results that it's exactly what we were saying to him, is that if I add this up quick, 77% of our members taking this poll, and so one can extrapolate that to the membership at large, certainly take 8 days or less, and that's something that we've been saying for over a year now. So this poll certainly proves and vindicates the information that we have. Patrick, back to you.
Thanks, Robin. Now we're going to go to another caller live on the air. We have Paul from Victoria who has a question about what can we do. Paul, over to you.
Hey, thanks very much for this opportunity. So I had a question. You mentioned that the bargaining teams have now met and are formulating their demands. And you spoke that, we will be fighting for sick leave, or we are fighting, you said are, fighting for sick leave. So I'm wondering what we're fighting for when the demands have yet to been put on the table from the employer.
Thanks, Paul. I'm going to pass that question over to Bob because I think it's his turn to talk.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Thanks for the question. Well, there's a number of things. We talked about some of the things that we can do, I guess, to get involved. But the idea that that they haven't put anything on the table in front of us, you're quite right. But a lot of the information that we have so far is based upon internal communiques. It's based upon things that Tony Clement himself had said, and what the government has come out with in their legislation. It's very clear that they intend to put this in front of us in one form or another. They've already gone out to the public and said that that they're going to deal with, I think the quotation was, they're going to deal with sick leave usage in the public sector. So it's been pretty clear, and but you're quite right. We don't know at this point in time exactly what their demand is going to be at the table. But that said, we know that something is coming, and I think the best way for us to proceed is we're going to go to the bargaining table and operate from a position of strength, not weakness. We're not going to wait for them to come to us and say, okay, we're going to take your sick leave. What do you think about that? We're going to go and we're going to put our demands on the table and bargain aggressively. And bargain for improvements in our collective agreement. And I think the best way we can do that, we talked about some of those ways that we can support the bargaining team, and that's one of the basic fundamental things, I think, is that we educate ourselves and we educate our members and make sure that, that our members know why we're going to the table, what we're putting on the table, what the demands are, and that we need to support those folks. I met with a number of them last week that were in Ottawa for the team meetings, and they're finalizing the prioritization of the demands. Every one of those folks that was elected to a bargaining team are committed. They're going into this with their eyes wide open. They know it's going to be a difficult job ahead of them, but they're going into it with the knowledge that our members are going to be behind them. So I think some of the things we talked about. Getting out to meetings, talking to one another in the workplace, getting involved in activities like May 1st activity is going to be really important. Thanks, Patrick. Over to you.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, Paul. We now have a question from Tom, who works at Transport Canada in Vancouver. Tom, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I have a question about current sick leave. I have about 400 and something hours, which I've collected or banked, trying to. And I'm just wondering if that's going to be affected by the potential change in the sick leave.
That's a good question. Bob says he can answer that, so I'm going to pass it over to Bob.
Well, I'm not sure whether I can totally answer it because we haven't seen what the demand is coming from the employer. We don't know if they're going to look at people that have long-term sick leave banks, whether they're going to try and alter that, whether they're going to take something else into consideration. So it'll be a little bit difficult for us to speculate, and I wouldn't want us to speculate until such time as we see an actual demand in front of us. But I do think that the teams will be taking that information when they are called to the table, and they'll be looking at all circumstances, including the one that you've described. I don't know, does perhaps Robin or Bonnie might have an additional comment?
Bob, if I might, thank you so much, because, quite frankly, we're going to be very proactive this round of negotiations, and we're going to say no. When the employer comes to the table and says that they want to make changes to our sick leave or do away with our sick leave and implement a short-term disability, the reality is that our members are going to say no to this. because there is nothing wrong with the sick leave package that we have right now contained within our collective agreement. And quite frankly, if the government thinks that there is, then they should tell us what's wrong. And we should be able to then negotiate enhancements to what we currently have within our collective agreement. So we're going to be very proactive. We're going to be talking to our members. As Bob has indicated, there's going to be meetings happening in BC and right across the country, mobilization meetings to answer the questions of the membership and to ensure that the membership understands that we are not in a race to the bottom. We are not going to allow clawbacks from our collective agreement. So the answer is no to concessions with respect to sick leave. Bonnie, did you want to add something?
Thanks, Robin. The only thing I would add is that in the Treasury Board documents we have come across, they have been signaling that they would want to negotiate what would happen to sick leave banks. So while we haven't received a formal proposal from the employer on sick leave, we have to be mindful that they're certainly looking at sick leave banks. They're looking at, how many days a member would have to use on sick leave before they'd go on to a short-term disability plan or a long-term disability plan. So like both Robin and Bob have clearly stated, we haven't received the employer's proposal yet, but we do need to be going in with our eyes open and ready to fight because it's going to be a tough fight.
Thanks, Bob and Bonnie and Robin. For those of you that didn't recognize that voice, that was Bonnie Bates, the PSAC researcher with our negotiations section in Ottawa. Just a reminder that if you would like to ask a question of any one of our three guests tonight, you can press *3 on your phone and be put through and ask a question. Next, we are going to Debbie in Vancouver. Her question is, well, Debbie in Vancouver has a question around assuming that people have to go to work when they're sick. Debbie, what's your question?
Hello? I started with, why do you believe that sick members will have to go to work? Because you kept saying they would have to. Right now we don't have to go to work, but we're going to have to if something happens. Why?
Robin, can you answer that question or comment?
Well, yeah, I certainly will, and thank you very much, Debbie, for your question. Obviously, if we don't fight for our sick leave and this government takes it away from us, does this clawback, and puts in a short-term disability, there is no short-term disability plan that I am aware of that gives you 100% wage replacement. And so if a short-term disability comes into effect and you have to have so many days of leave without pay, and then you're only going to get 70% of your salary when you actually go onto the short-term disability, then I would suggest to you, sister, that our members would be coming to work sick, because I don't know of anyone who can afford leave without pay for sick leave or who can afford to live on less than 100% of their salary. And so from our perspective, this is why I believe that our membership will stand up and will say to this government, no, that they are not about to give up sick leave. They're not about to give up salary dollars when they're ill, at a time when they need to be looked after and ill. This government cannot expect them to give up monies to stay home. So from our perspective, that's why we say that a short-term disability plan is not advantageous for our membership at all. And we need to keep what's in our collective agreement, and we need to fight that, and we need to say no to this employer, this government, when they come to the table to take it away from us. So, Patrick, back to you.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks, Debbie. Bob is telling me that he'd like to add a little bit of something to that, too. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think it's really important when we talk about, whether or not our members should be going to work sick. They shouldn't be going to work sick. And if I think we need to start asking that question of the employer at UMC tables and put that in front of them. Get them to say, no, your members shouldn't be coming to work sick, or more importantly, yes, we think that they should be coming to work sick. Get them to put that in writing. And I think we need to be asking our employer to be accountable as we go forward here. It's about, a lot of the discussions are going to be about making sure that our members know what their rights are in the collective agreement, and we do that by talking about the collective agreement in the workplace and at meetings, and then putting it to the employer and demanding what our rights are. And I doubt very much that there's going to be an employer out there that's going to tell one of our members to come into work sick. But I think we do need to put that in front of them. Patrick?
Thanks, Bob. We'll go to another caller now. We have Mark who from Victoria, who has a question about our May the 1st event. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I'm relieved, actually, to hear that we're going to be doing something in the region now. I didn't like not being able to offer anything up after our brothers and sisters in Quebec started this whole pushback. But all that being said, my work site, CFE Esquimalt, has 7 other bargaining agents on it. Have we done any reach out to them to include them in this May 1st Day of Action?
Bob, over to you. I think you can answer that question.
Well, thanks, Patrick, and thanks, Mark, for the question. I think May 1st is going to be a tremendous success for us. When we looked at what kind of an event that we thought that we could do, we looked at the success of the event that we did back in 2012. And it was something that our members embraced. They come out of the workplace in huge numbers. They put up signs. They were quite proud to come out and take pictures and show their support. So we're going to be building on that for sure. As far as the other bargaining units that are taking place, the planning for May 1st, we're moving ahead with it fairly quickly. We've got the posters made up. In terms of speaking to specific groups, I'll have to defer a little bit to Patrick as to what plans have been made around contacting those other units. But we're going to try and include as many people as possible in the activity to get as much participation. And Patrick, could you just add to that? Maybe?
Patrick, it's Robin. If I might just add something.
Of course, Robin.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Mark, it's an excellent question about the other bargaining agents, and I think that everyone on the call should know that there are 17 bargaining agents within the Federal Public Service. Where we come together as a national joint council. We have signed a solidarity pact where all of us are saying clearly to the government that we are working together, that we are not going to entertain clawbacks at the bargaining table, because the majority of us are in negotiations this year. Not only do we speak to no clawbacks, but we speak to working together and taking actions together. And so clearly, when BC does their May 1st actions, I anticipate the other bargaining units will be out there front and center with each and every one of you, because the leaders of those bargaining agents have signed the Solidarity Pact in that we are working together and taking actions together. And it's already starting to happen right across this country that, for example, PIPS is now boycotting Public Service Week, the first time in their history. So it's really coming together. So I would anticipate they will be out there May 1st. Patrick, you can certainly speak to, though, the invite that I'm sure you're giving to them.
Thanks, Robin. And for sure, when we put our plan for May the 1st together, one of the things that we really did consider was involving other units, because, as Robin said, we're not the only bargaining unit in the federal government, and this affects each and every worker that works for the federal government. So we had certainly thought of involving PIPS and CAPE, the 2 other large ones. But Mark, if you could, you know how to get a hold of me. If you could put me in touch with some of the people from those other bargaining units that I may not be able to get a hold of, that would certainly be very helpful. So let's move on. We have a question now from Christine in Nanaimo. Christine has a question around the election in 2015 and bargaining strategy. Christine, what's your question?
Yes, I just read in the newspaper today that the election is not going to happen now till October 2015, and that concerns me greatly because, of course, that's 18 months away. So I'd like to know what kind of collective bargaining strategies we have to deal with the fact.
sounds like Christine got cut off, but I think we got the gist of her question. Robin, can you comment on a national bargaining strategy?
Thank you, Patrick, and Bob may want to fill in as well. From our members, the locals have had meetings. They've submitted their demands up through to their components and then to the National Bargaining Conference, and of course now the teams have them. And so there is an obligation on the employer's part to discuss every demand that we have, and we're very committed to negotiating fair and equitable collective agreements for all of our teams. And with no fallbacks and no concessions. So from our perspective, when we have to have those kind of dialogues, and we're looking at some of the specialty work that's involved within some of our bargaining units, we anticipate that it will take a fair length of time to actually complete the negotiations. So we're going into these negotiations very open-minded, very committed to meaningful negotiations, meaningful collective bargaining. So our strategy at this point is to present the demands that have come from the locals, from our members, from the grassroots members, to the employer, and to move forward with that in mind. Bob, did you want to add something?
Yes, Robin. I'll just, and I hope Christine is still there. We didn't lose her completely. But I would just say that when I met with some of the bargaining team members last week, I'm assigned to the TC table, and the team is having the discussions around the prioritization exercise. So that has largely been done. And in terms of strategy, it's methodical. The way that we work, we've elected the teams, we've given them the demands, they prioritize the demands. The next step is going to be looking at strategy. And I know that we're in the process now of looking for team members that are going to participate on those strategy teams. The strategy as we move forward is very much driven from the teams, and that is certainly, the team members are a key part of that. And so we will be looking at doing that in the very near future. The comment about the election happening in October 2015, that may be what's being reported today, but we have no real gauge as to whether or not that may happen. The government may call the election early if they figure it's to their best advantage. So I think the message there to us is, although that's what's being reported today, we need to be ready, and we need to get our ducks in a row fairly quick, so that if something does happen, they decide to call an election earlier, that we are going to be ready. Patrick?
Thanks, Bob. Now we'll go to another caller. We have Carrie in Abbotsford who has a question about the potential new sick leave plan. Carrie, what's your question?
Hi. I'd like to find out if we know just what this new short-term disability plan is going to be. I worked for the BC provincial government before, and the plan there was you got paid 75%, and then we were able to top it up if we had any overtime. So I'm just wondering if it's something similar to that or something completely different.
I'm going to pass that question over to Bonnie, Bonnie Bates, our researcher in Ottawa, who may have some information about what the government is planning. It's important to realize, though, I think that nothing has been tabled yet, but Bonnie may have some inside information. Bonnie?
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks for your call. What we've been able to glean from the Treasury Board's website and their communications and stuff is that they're looking at what's out there in terms of the private sector and the public sector, comparables, because they feel that they're behind the game in terms of not having a short-term disability plan. And so they're saying things like, most plans offer between 5 and 7 days that you can take just for a short-term illness, like a cold, a flu, what have you. But after that, you would be on a short-term disability plan with some form of income replacement. We see different versions of, income replacement, 70%, 75%. Some good ones have 100 for a defined period of time, usually about 25 days or so, and then after that your income replacement goes down and you are assessed and put onto a long-term disability plan for the duration of your illness, until you can come back to work or until you're age 65. But again, this is all just information that we've obtained from the PSAC, the Treasury Board's website. They have not tabled the definitive demand with us yet, so we don't know what they're looking at. So we have to just be mindful that it could be a great plan, it could be a terrible plan, but we keep saying, there's nothing wrong with our current sick leave system now. Why don't we make improvements to the current sick leave system and not go onto a short-term disability plan?
Thanks, Bonnie. We'll go to another caller. Now we have Anna, who's phoning in from Coquitlam, who has a question about fighting for sick leave. Anna, what's your question?
Hi. I'm wondering how hard the union and the members will be willing to fight for this to stand up, because with the last big issue of severance pay, it seemed like we didn't have the mandate even to vote yes or vote no on that, and we ended up losing it. So I'm just wondering, would we be willing to go to strike for this?
I think that's a question that the PSAC National President can answer. Robin?
Well, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Anna. Quite frankly, I've been really clear. I've been clear since Tony Clement came out a little over a year ago talking about sick leave, that we're not swapping it, we're not trading it, we're not selling it, and we're not bargaining it away. It is in our collective agreement, and it's there to stay. And it's there to stay because the members are going to ensure that it stays there. So we're doing mobilization. We're going to be having meetings. We're going to be talking with our membership. We've been talking to our friends and our families and our neighbors and Canadians about our sick leave and that we don't abuse it, that it is an insurance policy. It's contained within our collective agreement, and this isn't a race to the bottom. We're not going backwards. We're not going to allow the government to take something out of our collective agreement that has been there for over 30 years. So it will be all of us working together, all of us in solidarity to stand up and say no to this government. And I've been asked many times, what will we do when push comes to shove? And the answer is that we will do what we need to do in order to ensure that we have solid collective agreements and that we have no clawbacks and that we maintain sick leave. And that's a commitment not only from myself and the other leaders of the PSAC, but I believe from each and every member of the PSAC and other bargaining agents as well. So it'll be us working together to say no to this government. Patrick, back to you.
Thanks, Robin. And Bob, do you have anything to add to that from a BC perspective?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Anna, and thanks for that question, because this goes to one of the key fundamental points, and that's about our members getting out and talking, getting to know who the team members are, and coming out to those meetings when we get them rolling to tell the team members directly what we're prepared to do, how hard we're going to fight for this, because the team members are going to be making recommendations, and they're going to need that information. They're going to need to know what the membership in the region that they represent, what they're prepared to do. So it's a very important point, and I think we need to approach this in a way that we have never done before. We need to get out in huge numbers, have direct contact with those team members, and let them know what the issue is, what we're prepared to do, and how they're going to be supported. So thanks for that question. I think there's a couple of other questions that would probably address the same thing. So thanks very much, Anna.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Robin. And thanks, Anna. Next, we have a question from Colleen in Victoria, Colleen, what's your question?
I was just wondering, for mobilizing our membership, from our point of view, where we are, we have a very big local of just over 700 members, and we have an issue with reaching out to those members because we're so widely spread over such a big area in CFB Esquimalt. And I'm just wondering if the PSAC would be able to give us some suggestions how we can do that within our membership, since it is difficult to do with the employers lately. I'm wondering if you guys have any suggestions for us to help us out.
For sure. Thanks, Colleen. I'm going to pass this over to Bob.
Yes, and thanks, Colleen. Excellent question. This is a golden opportunity for us to to get our locals fully engaged, to participate in area council discussions, because it's not going to be just a single focus. We need to take every opportunity for our members to get involved, particularly in the large locals that have challenges with many numbers of members working in different locations. And it's going to be a challenge, and I know that we're going to be able to rise to that challenge. But we need to take, and I'll go back to the very beginning, some of the comments that I said around having conversations. That's where it takes place, conversations in the workplace with your coworkers. We need to spread this information member to member, workplace to workplace. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities, and I think the best thing that we can do right now is get educated, find out what the issues are, and keep talking to each other. The We Are All Affected campaign that we undertook earlier last year was all about talking, and it's all about communicating with ourselves, and this is where it's going to really pay off in spades when we have that ability to have those conversations at work. And also to get involved in the area council. I know in Victoria we've got a fantastic dynamic area council with a lot of really good folks where we can enhance those discussions. So a couple of good possibilities for you there.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks everyone who is on the call tonight. We're getting, I'm afraid, towards the end of our time. I know from looking at the screen that there are a lot of people that still have questions, and I want to let you know that you can leave a voicemail for us at the end of the call. If we didn't answer your question tonight, you can leave us a message, and I will promise to get back to you. We will get back to you. But we are getting towards the end of our time. So, Robin, do you have any last comments or remarks after hearing our telephone town hall?
Well, thank you, Patrick, and thank you to Bob for asking me to be on the call, even though I have to say it's 11 o'clock here in Ottawa. But I am so glad to have joined the call because there is certainly a lot of great questions. I think that, I think, Patrick, what did you say? There were thousands that were on the call. So I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your Monday to come onto the call and just hear a bit about the Conservative government's plans, their plans for sick leave. And, of course, the other issues that have come up with respect to the Solidarity Pact, et cetera, that we have with the other bargaining agents, because certainly if it wasn't for an opportunity like this, I think it's not something that you would probably know readily. This government's plans with respect to sick leave, I can certainly say that it is a concern for us, but I know that it's a challenge that the membership is prepared to take up. So I also need to thank Bob, BC REVP, Brother Jackson, for all the work that he's been doing and the work that we've got coming up in terms of your May Day and other plans that are going to be happening within the region. And thank you to Bonnie, who again is in Ottawa and on the call here at 11 o'clock tonight, a great research officer who helped us to answer the questions that our membership had. I'll end this, Patrick, just saying that this is a time when we all need to stand up, and we need to stand up and be together against these clawbacks to our collective agreements, because we're certainly not going to take it, not for sick leave, not for any clawbacks. So it's a fight, and I think that all of our members are up for this fight, and I look forward to working with them to show this government that we're not prepared to give up anything from our collective agreement. So back to you, Patrick, and thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Robin, and of course, thank you, Bonnie. Bob, any last messages?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I just wanted to say just before we go that we're in the process of organizing these bargaining meetings. I'm going to be attending these meetings. One of the bargaining team members will be at these meetings, component presidents. And the purpose of these is to give you the information about the negotiations that we've been talking about. There's going to be plenty of information on our regional website, psacbc.com. Those of you that follow that website, you know that it's updated on a regular basis. We're going to be posting details about these meetings as soon as we have them confirmed, and we're looking forward to your participation. We're also in the process of sending out a leaflet on sick leave for Treasury Board locals, and the pamphlet is on its way out to you now. They're also going to be available at these town hall meetings, and it's an excellent document. It talks about what we all have to do to stand together for sick leave and to stand together for public services. So again, thanks for being on this call. Fantastic evening tonight. Thanks for the questions. And I know that the teams are going to be thanking you for your support as we go forward into this incredibly difficult round of bargaining that's coming up, and I look forward to working with you. So Patrick, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Bob, and thanks to all of the PSAC members who took part in tonight's telephone town hall. We had 2,200 members on the line tonight. And again, just a reminder, I know we couldn't get to everyone's questions, but take a moment to leave us a voicemail message at the end of the call, and we will get back to you, or you can send us a message or an email via the website at psacbc.com. Thanks, and have a great night, everybody.